Ben, what's happening, brother?
Thanks for having me on.
Twice in one day. This is
Twice in one day.
Good start to the day.
Yeah, saw you chaps at the gym earlier, and then obviously had the workout before we came here.
Yeah.
And then now we're chatting.
Did you think when we met last fall in the sauna at Kuya that you'd eventually be on the Meat Mafia podcast?
Was the Meat Mafia podcast around then?
Not even a thing.
It was not.
In our permeating in our subconscious, but not a thing yet.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of had, that might have been the first episode when we first met.
It would have been a great episode. We got to recreate it.
Yeah, a pretty, for lack of a better word, based conversation in the in the sauna about meat, consciousness, maybe psychedelics a little bit, supplements and other things from my memory. That was a while back now.
I think we even talked about some type of like nasal or sinus surgery that you had that was life-changing too.
Yeah, so just deviated septum surgery. There's some research now that shows that most people should have a little blockage in one of the nasal pathways, and I'm kind of like looking into that a little bit, but I'm already a little far gone. I already had the procedure, so I had a lot of problems breathing out of my nose, which stemmed from a broken nose. And, you know, to be honest, like one side was basically entirely blocked. So I think it was kind of a no-brainer in my case, but for people that are kind of on the edge, you might want to look into some of the more late research that's on the cutting edge, but that completely changed my life. Fixed my sleep, athletic performance, made meditation and yoga practice much easier. Yeah, that was one of the better things I've done for my health in recent memory.
It seems like you've got a lot of the like health, for lack of a better term, hacks dialed in, you know, like sauna, just consistent in the gym. Has that always been the case? Just like someone who's always focused on improving their health? Because it's so massive. So many people miss it, but it's so foundational.
Yeah, I think in my case, I started lifting weights when I was about 16. So I was one of the bigger kids up until high school, and I was pretty heavily medicated with ADD medication, and at a dose that's like just off the charts, way too high.
For real?
One, I don't necessarily buy into the idea that like we should be medicating kids with that kind of approach for ADD, at least at heavy doses. And for me, the dose that I was taking was way too much. So anyway, the effects of that were obviously poor sleep because I'm basically on meth. I had blunted appetite, you know, so effect of methamphetamine or whatever, which is a part of ADD medication. In the case that I took it, blunts your appetite. So when I started taking it, it for sure had effects on my development, both physically and I think neurologically too. It created all kinds of tics and stuff. So I felt really small, basically, as all the other kids caught up to me and just grew much larger than I did. So as a consequence of eventually stopping, I felt pretty compelled to like get bigger. So that's what really was the impetus for starting to work out. And yeah, I hit the weights pretty hard from 16 onwards until now. I'm 30 now. So I've been working out pretty religiously for 14 years with no real lapses, to be honest. The only time I took time off, besides like the programmed rest days, is when I had a shoulder surgery. So that's really it. You know?
So weight
dedicated.
Then. Yeah. Well, we see him collective all the time. So
I only work out 4 days a week.
I thought you were bringing the 25-pound dumbbells to.
Oh shit!
Yeah, we forgot. We were supposed to bring those secretly. Yeah, you guys need
get
that
the juicy forearm pump, mid pump. We all just hold 20s and just look absolutely shredded.
Take some creatine, amino acids, maybe a little beetroot, maybe even a little Viagra before we hop on the podcast. Just get real vascular.
Listen, crazier things have been done pre-show, so we could make that happen for you for part two.
For part two, yeah. I'm down. Yeah.
So you were weights first, and then when did you really start to come aware on like nutrition, proper diet, eating real foods? Like what part of your life did you start to awaken to that?
So it was pretty typical on-ramp, which was whey protein, some creatine, and like a basic 4 to 5 day a week weightlifting split program from like 16 to around 18. And then right when I turned 18, which would have been halfway through my senior year of high school, discovered CrossFit, through a family friend. And that kind of took the tide of CrossFit took me out to the deep ocean for a couple of years. And once I realized that was not for me, the last 4 or 5 years have mostly been focused on functional bodybuilding. Kind of like, I train like a lot like Marcus Philly, if any of your audience knows who he is, which is, he's a retired CrossFitter as well, survivor, if you will. So blending really like powerlifting, some Olympic weightlifting here and there with kettlebells and some bodybuilding and getting your heart rate up too. So physique based, but also longevity based. And so I basically want to be strong, have a good physique, and live a long time with ideally no aches and pains. That's kind of the philosophy. And I work backwards from there. So that's how I train. In terms of like getting into more of the esoteric biohacks, I'd say around 5 or 6 years ago, started to get a bit more intense with it. I always enjoyed a sauna and cold plunge because candidly during college I'd go out pretty hard and there was no better cure than jumping in the steam room or the sauna and getting in the cold. But yeah, I started to get pretty into it. I fell into Ben Greenfield's sort of domain, and that was like a pretty intense on-ramp, obviously. And that was a good, again, intense way to kind of like learn a bunch. I just kind of drank from a fire hose, him and a couple other people. And then the last few years have gravitated more towards like the holistic, natural, minimalist approach. I still like use supplements, occasionally peptides, but for the most part, like sun, sleep, manage stress, train hard, and eat clean whole foods and be in a good community. That's kind of 80 to 90% of what it takes to be healthy. So that's what I focus on.
When you were first getting into creatine, was your mom one of the moms against creatine? I feel like we should make sure it's not just moms against creatine.
Mothers against drunk driving, and so mad or whatever it is. Then you have mothers against creatine, just Mac. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
You got to do some merch. Yeah, we got to spin up a merch shop for that.
The best meme is the clip of Dana White, and it's like your mom when she discovers your creatine order, and it's like you could go to fucking federal prison.
I've seen
federal prison.
Yes,
it's so good.
I've seen the meme.
It's so good.
Yes, it's a good one.
So you so sauna cold plunge, this was like 6 years ago. So I feel like 6 years ago, you could find a good amount of saunas at like a lot of commercial gyms, but I feel like I couldn't find a cold plunge anywhere. So you were like pretty early on to this stuff, which makes sense, I guess, if you were into Greenfield and some of these other like esoteric health influencers.
A lot of it's just intuition, like what feels good in some cases, in many cases, tends to be, in terms of health and wellness, obviously I'm not talking about like drugs or alcohol or overindulging in porn. Those feel good too, but in a fleeting way. But what intuitively you're drawn to and what feels good from a health perspective tends to be correct. So I was gravitating towards like getting out in the sun more, despite having a skincare brand and everyone else saying that's not what you should do, because it felt good.
Yeah.
I felt more energy. My circadian rhythm felt more dialed in. This was subconscious. I wasn't aware of that at the time. Now, obviously, there's tons of research that supports that. But yeah, honestly, I just kind of followed my gut, no pun intended. And that's kind of led me to where I am today. Again, I'm not the most knowledgeable, but I feel like I have a pretty good balance and handle on things, as do you guys too. I know you kind of share the same philosophies around sunshine, lifting weights, definitely diet. Yeah.
How do you go about like helping a friend out who can't seem to follow their intuition? Because I just feel like I come across so many guys who like should naturally I feel like they should understand some of this stuff. Like, okay, why do you think the sun's bad for you? And then they go outside and sit on the beach and they feel great. It's like, okay, like maybe there's something to that.
It's a tough one because some people are very stubborn in their ways, sometimes about things that are touchy subjects, particularly recently in the last few years with COVID and whatnot. You can pick up what I'm saying there. And I think the question is just to ask them questions, like not too poignant, but more just like, well, why do you think that?
Yeah.
And then see what they say and just kind of help them reach their own conclusion. And again, some people won't, and that's not really your problem. I mean, you know, I think it's important to like try to question people, your friends especially, if you disagree with them, but in a healthy and constructive way. And, you know, look, if they're not interested in improving their health, there's not much you can do.
Yeah. It's almost like you have to be your own proof of work, and the people that are interested will like just naturally reach out to you and be curious, and then you can help them. But I remember when I went carnivore for the first time in 2019, I was getting so many DMs from friends that were like, dude, you're going to fucking kill yourself. Meat's going to skyrocket, your cholesterol, you're going to have a heart attack. And then over time, they literally start to see you transform. And they're like, oh shit, this guy's happy, healthy, he's thriving. What is he doing? So I've seen some of those same people come back around, but it's like you just almost act as your own proof of work, and the people that are curious will like gravitate towards you, and then you can actually help them too.
Yeah, I mean, when you're lucky enough to have the knowledge that you guys and a lot of the people we hang out with, some mutual friends, some not, have, you almost feel compelled to like scream at the top of a mountain about it because it was so helpful for you. At least I'll speak for myself, right? And there was a phase where I kind of felt compelled to like bestow my beliefs and stuff on other people. But once you realize that that's a fruitless, empty exercise that usually actually doesn't result in people listening to you, you know, I tend to just be available if people have questions. And again, I'm not a doctor, not giving medical advice. I'm just sharing what's worked for me. Another good question is like, this is a bit more cantankerous, but I say like, do you think you look healthy? And if I ask that when they obviously don't, and if they answer honestly, then I'm like, well, that kind of usually nudges them in the right direction. But to go back to your point about people that are curious, I mean, I've had friends that have come to me and be like, I want everything that you do. And I'm happy to share. And it doesn't take that long. In like 10, 15 minutes, I can pretty much like outline on 1 or 2 pages, like everything that I eat, everything, how I train, how I sleep, how I recover, how I travel places, what I've done around my house to kind of like reduce exposure to environmental toxins, whether that's like plastics or air quality or water or whatever. It's actually not that complicated. If you have someone kind of show you the cheat codes, it's actually not that much work. But the self-discovery process of like kind of waking up to a more holistic lifestyle, that takes a while. So I think it's important if someone is really interested to just, give them the cheat codes if they're open to it.
Yeah. The information, like what they should be doing seems obvious to me. And I feel like once they see someone who's healthy looking, it's like, okay, I can just replicate what he's doing. But then there's the how and kind of implementing habit change, which is where I think most people get tripped up. It's like, how do you actually catalyze some change for someone who's coming off the couch?
That's tough. I mean, discipline is, I mean, everyone talks about this on every podcast ever, right? But like, it really comes down to discipline. And I think once you start to see results, the discipline kind of solves for itself. So I used to own a CrossFit gym way back when, and we used to have like weight loss challenges that were actually, we adopted the Alex Hormozi model, the gym launch model.
Really?
And the reason I bring that up is to say, people would come in, I'm just using this as an example, right? They'd be 400 pounds. They'd be like, I want to get from here to there. That's quite a far journey, right? We'd say something to the effect of like, well, let's track it week by week. Let's worry about the first pound we're losing. Once they, after a week, weighed 395 pounds, again, that's like a lot of weight to lose in a week, but you get the point, right? They start to see results. Then they start to kind of go down a path of momentum. And that's where the discipline starts to breed and foster and multiply. So I think it's about getting a couple easy, quick wins that have real insightful change quickly. And then from there, assuming they're motivated and have a good head on their shoulders, it starts to kind of solve for itself.
Yeah, it's a good point. I feel like everyone has their own like motivational anchor that kind of leads them down the path towards health, where it was like, for me, it started off just doing like running and long distance cardio, lost a bunch of weight, felt really good. That kind of bridged me into carnivore because I was like, okay, well, how can I optimize? For some people, it's weight training. For some people, it's sleep. But it's like, it seems like everyone's got that one like big change that they can make that will kind of lead them down that like overall pathway that we're talking about. But it can be super overwhelming. But it's like, you don't have to do 20 things. Just do one thing really well. And the 20 will come over time too. But it is a process.
Yeah. I think about it in a pyramid. So you have the basics on the bottom, which gets you 80% of the way there. And then you can think of sort of 3 more levels, the top of the pyramid being like the most intense, like maybe like Ben Greenfield level, where he's like, has red lights on his balls while he's working, while he's shaking when he's working, and then has red light, like that's like the top. I don't necessarily recommend that for everyone. And actually, to be honest, whether you like his stuff or not, like people like Ben are super helpful for this community because they're testing things on themselves. And whether or not you like any of the content, that doesn't matter. I think it's really important to have people that are willing to be guinea pigs and try things and then objectively measure the effect of them, and then be able to disseminate that information to people like us.
Yeah.
So, and you can agree or disagree with some of the findings and pick and choose what's best for you, but having people like that is super important. So back to the pyramid. Yeah. I mean, 80% of it at the bottom of the pyramid is kind of like sunshine, recovery, which includes sleep, exercise, food, nutrition, etc. And then the last one's sort of like environment. I would maybe add a 6, which is like community, relationships, etc. But that's sort of like, you can get 85% of the way really healthy if you have all those kind of firing on all cylinders. And then the next level up might be like, all right, I'm now doing sauna cold plunge 3 times a week. I'm getting morning sunshine. I'm doing Tai Chi. I'm doing breath work, meditation, things of that nature, kind of getting your mind right. And then the one above that might be like, all right, now I'm getting blood work every quarter. I'm supplementing based on what I'm deficient in or not optimal in. I might be using peptides or something like to that effect, if you're interested in that. And then the one above that is kind of like maybe a bit much for most people. So I think it's quite easy to get to the 3rd rung. You can get there in a few months, I think, if you started from scratch with the right people kind of advising you. But yeah, I mean, the sad thing is the vast majority of people in this country, especially America, are not anywhere near having the first level covered. And most of those things are free, by the way. Sleep, exercise, community, nutrition isn't free, obviously, but it's not as expensive as people think to eat well. So that's kind of a sad thing to bring up, but it's the reality of the situation.
Truth.
Community seems to be one that is often overlooked. And I do feel like we try to look at all these things in a silo too, where it's like people just get obsessive about nutrition and then they're not thinking about the other aspects of this food or this health web where they all actually play into a robustness and like a fully healthy life. But community is one where it's like, man, all you have to do is like join a gym. Like you could like pay your way into a community and bingo. Like it can have so many downstream effects, like joining a gym where you like showing up and seeing the people and they're doing things that are active, and just being around that will make you healthier.
Yeah, I agree. I think you become guilty by association, right? In a good way, good guilt, right? So
totally.
By being around healthy, like-minded people, that's a great piece of advice to someone that wants to get healthy, is start to surround yourself with healthy people, and you'll look at them because humans are beings that compare themselves to others. I'm not saying that's always a good idea, but in this case, maybe a bit of that's healthy.
Yeah.
And they'll see, whoa, that guy's way stronger than me, or whoa, that woman, looks wonderful because she trains or whatever. Well, I feel like I can do that.
Yeah.
It's a good sort of ignition to your wellness journey, and then also hopefully a better community as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned the red light in Ben Greenfield. Did you ever read his OG red light article for Men's Health? I'm sure you did, back in like 2018, maybe. He was like the first guy that talked about, like, he bought a Juve red light and literally would like sun his balls while he was working at the standing desk, and claims that he would blow like the biggest loads of his life by doing it. And in 2020, I read it and I immediately bought a red light and sun my balls every day. So
yeah, yeah, he's one of those guys that made me buy a Juve red light.
Yeah.
I met him and the founder of Juve at Paleo FX, probably like 2017, 2018. Immediately bought like the full wall.
Give me all of the red light.
I want all of it. And I can confirm that using red light naked seems to anecdotally raise my testosterone. It also feels really good. It's one of those like more intuition things. Again, this is strictly anecdotal.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of research now that supports it's good for mitochondria health. It's good for sleep. I definitely have to plug my friend Jake's red light company, which I've now replaced my Juve with Vital Red Light. So if you're looking to get a red light, check out Vital Red Light. He's in the same community as us on Twitter and whatnot. Thinks very similarly as far as the lifestyle goes to us. So yeah, Vital Red Light. That's where you should get it if you're interested.
I got a Vital a year and a half ago and love it. I wish I had it up in Boston when the winters are longer, and it's just like you kind of need something like that.
Again, put the science to one side for a second. I mean, I hate to be the guy that's like, well, let's ignore the science for a second, but it feels really good.
Yeah.
It feels nice. I stack stuff with it. So like I'm getting a little bit out there now, but like I have my shake plate thing, my vibration plate right in front of it. So in the morning when I wake up, I stand on that in front of the red light, and then I have like my noise canceling headphones in, which are wired, by the way.
Yeah.
Listening to my meditation. So I just like knock 3 things off the list pretty quickly. That brings up a certain point though, which I think is like, you can get carried away with this stuff really quick.
Yes.
And when I was in Europe, so I just got back from a pretty long European escapade. I was working, but was sort of working remotely in Mediterranean places with great sun, food, etc. And I kind of just relaxed a little bit on the routine stuff. I still trained, I still ate the same food, I still focused on sleep, meditated a little bit, but I was just getting in the ocean, kind of going by feel a little bit more with the morning routine. And my HRV went from 65 on average, which is what it is when I'm living normally here in Austin, to almost 90. And interestingly, like I was also, having fun till early hours of the morning, 2 or 3, nights a week when I was in Europe too. And even the nights that I was sleeping like 4 or 5 hours, which I don't recommend to anyone, by the way.
Yeah.
But I was having fun. My HRV was still higher than it was here in Austin when I get a full night of sleep. So there's something to be said about stress and not putting too much pressure on yourself, both in a working environment, in your rigid routine, whatever that may be, or lack thereof, and just kind of living a bit more intuitively if you can.
It's a great point, because it's like, here you are, you have every tool, every piece of biohacking technology, and it's like, just going to Europe and just doing what feels good and unplugging and being unstressed. It's like, look at what that did to your HRV.
Yeah. I don't drink coffee or really consume much caffeine. Sometimes I have like a microdose microdose meaning like 20 milligrams, which is about a fourth of a cup of coffee. I was ripping espressos there.
And how'd you feel?
Great. I felt great.
Amazing.
Yeah. The food there, I mean, everyone kind of like jokes about like, oh, I went to Europe, I ate a bunch of croissants and pasta and I came back 5 pounds lighter. I don't eat anything with gluten or any pasta or anything like that. But I certainly was not worried about the food quality like I worry about here when I go to like a basic restaurant. And man, I shredded up. I was leaner than I've ever been in the last few years. Felt great. My lifts were improving. Like my physique was improving. My sleep felt great. I was sleeping through the night. Didn't feel stressed. There was like a lightness that you feel. It's like a vibe thing in Europe, which is kind of like hard to quantify, right? But it's just a bit slower there.
It's cultural.
For the better. Yeah, it's a cultural thing. America has its merits, though. It's way more competitive here. Like if you want to make money and start businesses, this is the best place to be in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah. You made me think of something just about kind of the flow of life and how there are certain seasons for being rigid and being really disciplined around certain things. But then there's definitely certain seasons where you want to like take some of that rigidness out and just allow yourself to flow with a little bit less of these like intense frameworks and just kind of embrace life and not let it consume you and not let the disciplines and all the things that kind of just like add stress to your life in a lot of ways just get in your way.
So I'd say yes, but I still took care to look after the bottom of the pyramid that I mentioned earlier, which is sunlight daily, sleeping well, still eating clean, healthy, good food, mostly meat-based with fruits and whatnot. I was with my close friends, so community was handled. I was dancing, partying, having fun, but in a healthy, intentional way. And then, my training was still, I don't ever miss workouts. I occasionally have to move it a day based on travel, but I mean, I train 4 days a week. I never miss a workout. Yeah. That's just like, I tore my hamstring the first day I went to Europe, literally at Collective, the gym we work out at, right before my flight, my 10-hour flight to Europe. And it was bad. Like I could not walk, could not bend my leg. And I felt really, not lonely, but helpless because here, like I could heal that, no joke, 7 to 10 days. Yeah. I got team of people that I could go see, practitioners. I got sauna, cold plunge. I could get injections in it if I really needed to for whatever reason. There, I was just like, all right, like I have none of the tools that I have here. So honestly, that like relinquishing of control and rigidity kind of seems like a little crazy because I'm a bit neurotic with these routines, right? But it was a big deal. And I still was able to heal it pretty quickly. But again, back to the original point, I looked after the basics when I was there. And I think if you do that, like it's the right way to live your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got back from a Portugal trip and Harry has spent an extensive amount of time in Europe. It's like, it doesn't seem like they're like over sciencing, keto or the amount of carbs you eat or carnivore or paleo, whatever. It's like, there's almost no choice. You're just like forced to eat real foods over there. It was like, I was eating $15 lamb chops, like sauteed in garlic and high quality olive oil. And it's like, everyone's eating that food. All the espresso is really quality. Even in like the shitty cafe in the airport, it's like, it's just such an abundance of it. There's no choice. You just take it off the table.
Yeah. I've experimented with pretty much every popular diet under the sun, and where I've landed after objectively testing this too, not just kind of going by feel. So by feel and by objective metrics with blood glucose monitors, ketone ester testing, whatever, not ketone esters, ketone testing as well. And what I've landed on is a lot of meat, a lot of protein, clean, of course, grass-fed whenever possible, ideally as much as possible. Fruit. I personally eat rice and potatoes, mostly around like post-training time. But I also throw in a ton of honey, a ton of dates. What else? I like strawberries a lot too. And my blood work has never looked better. I've never been stronger. My skin has never been clearer. I've never slept better. I've never had higher libido. All my biomarkers are through the roof. So this is coming from someone who's tested all these things for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years now. And look, this is what works for me. I come from sort of like the Nordic, Germanic kind of area. And maybe this is what's best for where I come from, genetically speaking. So find out what's best for you. But I would say for the vast majority of people, like we need to be eating clean protein, definitely not vegan. This is not a vegan podcast, obviously. So clean proteins, carbohydrates of some sort, ideally gluten-free. I don't touch corn that often. And then I think fruits are muy bueno.
Muy bueno.
To be honest. Yeah. Especially like dates and honey, and there's some others too. But yeah, that's kind of how also raw dairy as well.
Need the raw milk.
I think there's something too with fruit, like the seasonality of it, like eating it in the sun. There's definitely some sort of effect there where
Feels incredible.
Sun helps metabolize sugar. Like
it's one of those intuitive things, right, man? Like being on the beach, I'll make up an example from my recent trip, right? Being on the beach in Portugal or Greece or whatever, sun is like 80, it's like 80 degrees outside. It's like 9, 10 a.m. I'm like eating a little bit of honey with my bare feet in the sand and like salt all over my body from being in the, I guess not in Lisbon, but in obviously the Mediterranean, there's more salt. I think I have that right. I just feel incredible. It just feels right. So it goes back to that point that's kind of come up across the last 30 minutes or so since we started chatting, but intuitive health, I think, is really important. And people have blunted themselves so much with poor food, shitty sleep, social media, et cetera, that they're not even in touch with themselves. You mentioned earlier, like, how do I teach someone who's not intuitive? Well, I think it's very challenging because most people aren't in touch with their body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily their fault. They were just led astray by modern times.
Yeah. They don't have this intuitive sense of what makes their body feel good. Hence, they need to rely on some type of like peer-reviewed study, or what you're talking about is like when you start to improve some of these markers, it's like you said, it's like, I don't need a scientific study to know that like eating fruit in the sun makes me feel really fucking good. You know what I mean?
I find that most people that are kind of in the wellness and holistic health community, not all, but a lot of them either arrived here through getting into working out or training first, because it makes you more in touch with your body, right?
Definitely.
And you start to do things that improve your performance. So there's like the performance route. That's one route. That's kind of the route I came in. Or there's the I've got a big fucking problem route and I got to change my lifestyle ASAP because I'm done with this. Whether that's like something is not innocuous, but not life-threatening, like eczema or something, to, I have cancer, like, and my treatment's not working. I need to make some changes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the other route, which is like you have a health problem and you discover all this stuff kind of through, whether that's Twitter or you stumble on a blog or podcast or something. So those are kind of like the main two routes, I think, at least that I've found or come across.
Definitely. You mentioned blood work and you said 8 years. Have you been doing blood work for 8 years? Damn.
Probably 7 or 8.
That's wild.
At least 6, maybe 8.
That's impressive because so you would have been 22.
23 I started, so 7 years.
Yeah. So I imagine you've seen a lot of things change through doing that.
Yeah.
What sort of things have you been focusing on just specifically with the blood work stuff?
This is something I spend a lot of money on, to be honest.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe when I was a little younger, it was a little irresponsible, but I don't feel bad about it. I had problems with my testosterone, especially when I was 24, 25. Mm-hmm. So I was a big guy. Then I was probably 10 pounds over. I'm about 190 pounds or something now, depending on when I last took a shower. And I was probably 200 then, but for whatever reason, like I didn't feel good. And the blood work started to reveal that. So my total test would have been 270.
Dang.
I can't remember what my available was, but it was not good. It was not good. Below like the blood work range, which by the way, typical blood work ranges are actually not optimal. So there's a difference between like the normal range and then what's optimal for certain biomarkers. So you want to get a doctor if you're interested or in the market for someone to read your blood work who wants to get you into the optimal ranges for every biomarker, not just like in an okay place. You want to be, if you're spending money on blood work and trying to optimize your health, you want to be in the optimal range, ideally. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I've tinkered with TRT. I've taken peptides. I'm happy to share any and everything about that, at least as it relates to my experience, if helpful.
Maybe just the most helpful practices that you found to actually increase that testosterone level to optimal ranges.
Wow. TRT is an easy way to do it. That's the easiest way. I definitely don't suggest that for people who are young. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, like lifestyle is how you optimize your males. If we're talking about males here, male sex hormones. So again, goes back to that pyramid that we were talking about earlier. Sunshine, ideally sometime between like 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. or after 6 p.m. because the UV index is a little lower then, but you still get the benefits. Sleep, super important for testosterone, like incredibly important. Doing hard things as number 3. Lifting weights is like the easiest way to achieve that. It increases HDH, etc. What else? Nutrition, of course. Eat meat.
Yeah.
Tons of amino acids amongst many other things that are really helpful for sex hormones and optimal sort of biomarkers in that department too. And then, I think that's after that, you can start to get into like the stress management of things. So meditating, breath work. One little hack that I use, which is whenever I get stressed, whether that's like some guy, we were just talking about some guy basically like didn't attack me, but was like approaching me outside South Congress here in Austin. And it's like, all right, just breathe, just calm. Whether that's like at work when someone like triggers you or whatever. I'm not someone who's easily triggered, but if anything in your life is bothering you, just take a moment and try to like recycle that feeling just with your breath. And so eventually you'll become a pretty peaceful person if you use that practice. So that's really important. My point is really important for testosterone too. And if you want to take it another level, that's obviously when you can start to use supplements and stuff too. Tonga LE is a good one. Boron's a good one. Lowers sex hormone binding globulin, which eats up your available testosterone for a lot of people. So that's a good one. Boron, about 5 to 10 milligrams, depending on your blood work. What else? Zinc is good. Magnesium is like the ultimate supplement. Yeah, oysters. These are, again, if you already have all these other things dialed and you're still not happy and you want a little boost, like these are just some supplement ideas.
Totally.
But yeah, magnesium is another good one. Copper is okay. Fenugreek seed, which also lowers sex hormone binding globulin. There's a few others too, but generally with supplements, I like to use them for 2 or 3 months, see how that affects my blood work, and then, take a break from all supplements. I'll typically take a break every quarter for 2-3 weeks, go all natural, just to kind of restore to homeostasis, and then I'll go again, so to speak. So that's how I would go about it. Again, the ultimate shortcut is just a shot in the ass with TRT, but try to avoid that if you can. I think, my testosterone's over 800 now. I'm totally natural, totally clean. I don't take HGH, steroids, testosterone, peptides, anything. I just have optimized my lifestyle, reduced stress. I do take some of the supplements I just mentioned, namely Tonga LE, a few others, but it's possible.
Yeah. But again, it's the bottom of the lever or bottom of the pyramid levers to pull on before you start going the supplementation route.
Yeah, I mean, I think if someone comes to you or me or whatever and is like, I want to, my testosterone's terrible, my blood work shows this, how do I get a quick win? I would say sleep more as soon as possible, like starting tonight. If your diet's already clean, then you need to look at your training, make sure you have compound lifts in every one of your sessions, whether that's 4 or 5 times a week. So lift heavy and hard often, but make sure you recover too. I recommend at least 2 days of recovery per week from lifting, ideally 3. Less is more there, but you want to get good volume and intensity during your sessions. And then, we already talked about food. If you do all those things and you're still not where you want to be, then throw around the supplements. But if you want to kind of throw the kitchen sink in them, those are all very safe, easy ways to kind of get little bumps here and there in the blood work.
I was going to say, I would imagine, because I think about this for us, like it must have been tough to think about prioritizing sleep, especially as you're a founder, you're scaling these different D2C brands. It's like sleep is the first thing that goes because it's like, shit, I'm too busy. I can't worry about sleep. I got to grind. I'm just curious, did you have those thoughts? Is there anything that you did to just prioritize sleep?
I don't necessarily buy into the argument that you can be a founder and if you're a founder, you don't have good sleep. I'd actually argue that sleep is more important if you're a founder. Some of you probably read the article. It was like a WashPo article or something that talked about Bezos and his emphasis on sleep. It's like, obviously he's in the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of founders ever, if not one of the best founders ever. But in that article, they talked about cognitive decline. And I think it was something like for every hour that you get below 8 hours, your decision-making is impaired by 10 to 20%, something along those lines. I might be getting the numbers wrong, but something like that. So, I mean, that tells you all you need to know. Like basically being a founder, especially at the later stages, is just a lot of decision-making. You're kind of less usually in the weeds. So if your decision-making is being impaired numerically to the extent of like 10 to 20% for every hour you get below 8 hours, it's like, well, that's an easy decision. You should be sleeping 8 hours or ish, right? So I've never really bought into the idea that like you shouldn't be sleeping that much if you're a founder out of necessity either. Like I know that if I sleep more, I'll make better decisions, which will eventually, even if it's in the early stages, get me out of the point where I have to work 16 hours a day on the idea or the business. So I've always prioritized sleep. Now there was a time with my skincare brand where it was just mayhem. Like it was scaling super fast. Like I was juggling, raising around. I was solo. We were crushing. And I would like wake up at 5 a.m, super early, like just ready to go. And I was okay with that. I was like 25 or 26. But that's a cortisol thing. It's like a stress thing. So I've learned to manage that as I've aged a little bit. Maybe it'll happen again if I'm part of a very rapid growing business, hopefully soon. But yeah, largely speaking, like you should be prioritizing your sleep, especially if you're a founder. Everyone should be, especially if you're a founder.
Is there anything else that you think founders get wrong when it comes to health? It seems like there's kind of a disparity. There's people who just are so dialed in. They get like every little detail right when it comes to their health as a founder. And then people who just like don't even think about it. Yeah,
there's a couple guys here in Austin that I've seen. Sam Parr is one of them. He seems to have prioritized his health after his big exit. He's taken working out pretty seriously. I think we share our coach. There's the Alex Becker guy who's taken it to the nth degree too. I think it's possible to get a pretty good baseline of health, even while you're a founder, especially when you're grinding too. So to answer the question, like you often see like people have an exit and then take it really seriously. I think you can take it, if I have to quantify it, 70 to 80% seriously and get the basics. Here we are going back to the bottom of the pyramid, right? For an hour and a half a day, and then still have 15 hours remaining in the wakeful hours to work on the business, which is a lot. Yeah. Like if you're working 15 hours on your business, you're outworking your competitors almost certainly. So I'd say, yeah, most founders that are of the belief that they don't have time to exercise and go on a walk, like that's absolute nonsense. Like look at your phone, open your phone, tell me how many hours you're on Instagram or Twitter or these other apps. There's probably a select few who are truly working 16 hours a day, but the vast majority, like they're wasting the time that they could be spending an hour working out, doing nonsensical things. So I'd say, yeah, you should be prioritizing 4 hours a week to train, work out, whatever, lift weights, whatever your thing is, yoga, whatever. And then on top of that, you should schedule time, well, maybe once or twice a week to socialize with people. If you do that, your company will do better. I'm almost certain of it. Because you'll be healthier, you'll be happier, and you'll be better slept too. Yeah. Decision-making goes through the roof if those things are in order.
No brainer.
It's a no-brainer.
We had Mark Sisson on the show probably like 2 months ago. Very similar advice to what you were saying. I mean, take it from the guy that's freaking sold Primal Kitchen, was it 200, 300 million? And he was like, I vehemently believe that you can have a really good life prioritizing health and also build a badass business. That these things aren't mutually exclusive. It's actually one feeds the other.
Totally agree. I don't really have much else to say other than like,
I think it was just a comment.
That's a no-brainer, man. Take it from himself, right? Like he's 70 now, right?
Yeah.
Did you see that picture of him on the internet the other day that he posted
for his
70th birthday? The dude is like sub 10% body fat. He's tan. He's got a full head of hair and he's 70 years old.
Totally.
Most people's grandparents who are, even younger than him per se, look 40 years older than he does. Yeah. What does that tell you? It tells you that living a natural, holistic lifestyle works. Totally. The proof is in the pudding. The fact that people still don't believe that getting out in the sun, within a reason, obviously you don't want to fry, getting a healthy amount of sunlight, training a couple times a week, eating a sort of meat-focused diet, protein-heavy diet, clean protein-heavy diet, and looking after your community isn't wise, then like, I don't know what else we could tell these people.
100%.
Yeah, apparently now people that also work out are like right-wing fascist. I don't know if you saw that article.
The three of us are fascist.
Yeah, we
fascist
are
doctors.
massive fascist. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that article last week. That was absolutely.
It was incredible.
I was astounded. I think I was sitting on the toilet or something reading this. I was like, "What am I? Is this real? Is this the Babylon Bee or something?"
Yeah,
it's just like some troll in Brooklyn who's like sitting in our studio apartment, like hunched over,
mouth breathing. It's like, okay, all right. If you think that,
great take.
These types of takes are really not that we don't need to get political, but I mean,
we can if you want.
These types of takes are really pushing like very reasonable, middle of the road, mostly apolitical people to another side, because it's like, Definitely. Normal people read that and they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I read that and I'm like aghast. I'm not surprised anymore, but I'm aghast. These are ludicrous takes.
Yeah. And it's like publications like the New York Times and these massive journals and things like that everyone's reading. But yeah.
Well, it's click-based. That's the problem. Look, I think there probably are I can't believe I'm saying this. There probably are sensible people at the New York Times and CNN, but the reality is what pays their paychecks are clicks and attention. And look, they have us talking about it, so they won, right? Yeah. So I think that's the problem. There needs to be, and newsletters kind of do this. Some newsletters are good about this, but there needs to be a news organization that, I don't know whether it's private funded by someone who's like middle of the road, but that isn't based on the number of clicks. And I don't know if that's possible in this day and age. So maybe I'm just kind of talking on my ass here, but I would subscribe to that in a heartbeat. I don't pay attention to the news at all anymore. That's you want the biggest health hack in the world? That might be it. Don't listen to or watch the news.
100%. I think that's what's exciting about podcasts is that they obviously can be swayed by sponsors or whatever, but you can collect a bunch of different opinions on certain topics and probably come up with a more informed take than just reading the newspaper.
Yeah, I think in the information age, which we're in now, the way I kind of make decisions is I triangulate from multiple sources. And if, again, we're using him a little heavily, but like if Ben Greenfield says this and then you say this, and then 10 of the other people that I trust are saying this too, it's like, well, these are guys that are salt of the earth. These are people that, try things for themselves. And in many cases are objectively measuring it and quantifying whatever the hack or diet change or whatever is. And if they're all kind of saying that, there's a nice constellation of folks that I trust, then I'm going to try that probably.
Yeah.
Within reason, obviously, if you're recommending something absurd, maybe not, but maybe I will because I'm a little crazy.
Little red light on the balls, yes. But
yeah, that's a yes. That's a hard yes for me. Yeah, that's another good one. That shit works.
Yeah. But the key word is try and self-experiment, not just blanket following what they're saying, but like, I'm going to take a bunch of these different modalities. I'm going to experiment, and then I'm going to take internal sense of what actually makes you feel good, and then figure out the best approach. Right.
Total agreement.
I'm trying to think if there's anything that I've tried after hearing it that I just like, yeah, that just didn't work for me. I feel like most of it, it's been validated.
Raw milk fast worked.
10
days. 77. Was it 10 days?
10 days.
All raw milk.
Oh man,
it was great.
What happened?
All right. Full disclosure. The weirdest thing that happened, everything was fine. My shit, totally white.
Shitting ghosts.
You got that albino poop.
I was like, this could be bad. No, but I felt amazing. Well, raw milk is incredibly hydrating. So I was running, working out, feeling amazing, high in protein, plenty of fat because it was full fat raw milk, unpasteurized. Yeah, I felt great.
Maybe next time you got to do the chocolate milk, raw milk fast so your poop stays the same color. Just thinking for you here.
I like that.
Noble chocolate with raw milk fast.
Done.
Yeah. Let's talk about Noble for a second.
Yeah.
Plug it. I want to hear from the horse's mouth what's going on.
Dude, we went from an idea on a whiteboard about 90 days ago to like 35K in sales. So we were just, the first iteration of what we've been doing is the show, just writing threads, interviewing experts, and just starting to develop like a sense of what's actually gone wrong with the food system. And we were like, what's the actual like dream product that really like encapsulates what we're doing here? And it's like something that combines like beef protein, organ meats have played a huge role in us, starting to incorporate colostrum, collagen, things like that. We were like, can we actually turn this into a supplement? Not super marketed towards the alternative health space. It's like, if people want to buy it, that's amazing. We want you to cook your steak, eat your own meals. But we think about like our moms or our sister or something like that, someone that's probably not going to eat organ meats, but if you could take something in a scoop that could make you taste really good and get you like a majority of the way there, like maybe that's a bridge to listening to the show or buying from a regenerative farmer or eating more meat. So kind of like that athletic greens type approach, but for like true ancestral foods, trying to like marry those two things together. That was a thought process.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I feel like the evolution for us too, starting on Twitter, really writing stories, there's a powerful message behind just trying to get product out there that speaks for itself and kind of breaks the existing paradigm where it's like, there's so many products that are coming out that are just cricket protein or plant protein. Like every time you go to like a Whole Foods, it's just lined up with different types of proteins that really aren't like animal-based, true animal-based, high quality. So to be able to bring a product that actually, one, is formulated in a way that we're excited about, and then two, can just carry the message forward beyond us just speaking into mics and only really be able to reach a certain amount of people, I think is really exciting.
How do you take it?
I like it with raw. Actually,
how do you take it?
We're talking about Noble, right?
Noble, yes.
Raw milk. I just dump it in some raw milk. Throw a little honey in there, and we're good. That's it.
Yeah, that's a good way. That's the best way. But I like
pun intended, of course.
Pun intended. Yeah. I like the Noble bowl. So I take some full fat Greek yogurt, throw a scoop in there, some berries, some like paleo, gluten-free granola or whatever. And kind of, that's like my supplement to ice cream if I don't want to have any ice cream during the week. But we had one investor has been mixing it into his oatmeal, which he really likes. And then also there's a straight organ powder. So it's like a really good topper to food. So if you're going to have like some ground beef, season that up, throw a little sprinkle of organ meats in there, and you're like microdosing organ meats, which is really cool. And you can't taste it at all.
We've reached our final form.
We have.
Microdosing.
We're going to get you so much, Noble.
I'm ready. I mean, I'll buy the product too because I'm a friend, of course.
We're going to get you.
You'll find out who your real friends are pretty fast once you launch a brand. You probably already have. I heard the sigh over there. Yeah, you know, when friends start asking for free stuff, especially if the product's under $100.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta. They don't know better, but yeah, your other founder friends, make sure they buy the product.
Yeah.
It's a small gesture, but it goes a long way.
Yeah. You know, and especially if they're in the same, like I'll actually use the product. I'm going to buy some too.
Yeah.
You said you would give me some, great. I'll happily receive it, but I'll also buy some.
Yeah.
And that needs to be the philosophy for other founders and other, you know, people that are in your network, friends, et cetera, at least, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if you're doing tens and tens of millions now and then, you can, you know, off a free bag, just dish them out, especially if they have a following and stuff and they'll post about it. But yeah, in the beginning, it's important to support your friends.
It's also just exciting being able to rep your friends' creative product ideas, like just being able to support them is I mean, is there anything better than that?
I can maybe think of a few things, but that's definitely a good, that it feels good though.
That's bottom of the pyramid, maybe?
Yeah. We'll use the pyramid example again. So what's the plan for the business? Do you have a product roadmap? Are you going to try, obviously you're going to scale it, but I mean, I assume you want to scale it.
I would hope so.
I hope so. Yeah.
No, I think just building like a really badass D2C brand, tapping into the incredible network of affiliates that we've built up right now. I think that's going to be like phase one of the strategy. We're about to get into Sun Life Organics, which will be amazing. We got into another big retail store in Texas that we'll tell you about off air, and probably do like 80-90% online sales, get into all the retail stores that we love and believe in, and try and go mainstream, NFL, MLB, pro sports, because I think we're really influenced by our experience playing college baseball and like thinking these like shitty industrial pre-workouts and protein powders and things like that were the way to go, when there's this whole other avenue that's available to our kids and young athletes and things like that.
Enough with the cricket proteins.
Dude, we need beef. We need to make beef sexy again.
Yeah, it is sexy again.
We're back.
We're back.
We're so back.
There was like a period of like, I don't know, 5 to 10 years or 5 to 7 years recently where beef was no bueno, but we were like in the dark night in the bottom of the prison cell, just like working.
Jumping,
spreading the message, jumping, whatever Christian Bale was doing, and we're back now.
We're so back, but it's a lot of what you talked about people that have been following mainstream science and they've been battling illnesses and autoimmune diseases and obesity, and you're like, they're saying, I'm doing everything the mainstream narrative is telling me, and I feel terrible. I'm on these drugs and medications. You read a Ben Greenfield article, you listen to a podcast where some guy's going carnivore and healing his disease, and you're like, well, shit, if this person cured it, why can't I? And then they do it, they start feeling amazing, they get off their drugs and medications, and they're like shouting from the rafters because they're like, why did my doctor never talk to me about my food? Why did they never prescribe these modalities? It's like, it's just so interesting, and people are awakening to that. That's why we felt like the timing of a Noble is perfect.
The incentives are not aligned with the corporations and with people in general, especially when it comes to health. Yeah.
What got you excited about being in the startup space? Because you've been in the startup space since you graduated college, right?
Yeah, I had one little escapade into a corporate job, but that was also while I had my gym too. I got a year of sales experience, which is actually one of the better things that I would recommend for people's careers, like do a year in some sort of sales, like hardcore sale. This was hardcore, not hardcore. It was phone sales for a tech software business, but real estate, whatever. Get some sales experience, and you can even do it in college too. But I think that's a really important foundation. But yeah, apart from that, I've been in the startup entrepreneurial sort of world since graduation. Probably more because I don't want to work for other people versus anything. I didn't just like stumble into it, right? Maybe I did because that was the way it was meant to be, right? But yeah, more just out of personal autonomy and freedom wishes, or I guess versus anything else.
I feel like that's most founders or most people in the startup space just have a little bit of a struggle with the power dynamic of working for somebody else.
You need to be a little neurotic to take the level of risk, regardless of the size of the scale of the business you're trying to build and what category it's in, to go out on your own. Like there's a little bit of crazy, I guess, for lack of a better word. Yeah, delusionally confident, I would say, in order to kind of take that risk.
Are you saying you just have to go schizo? Fully schizo?
This is where my expertise ends. I will tell you, there's like a crazy streak. Again, I'm not using technical terms, but in every founder I meet, sometimes the way they get there is they have no other choice, or they like are solving a problem that they personally have, or just like came across an idea in the right place, right time, and they have a co-founder that kind of brought them in because they have a skill set. But generally, like to do that, you have to be a little risk adverse, open to risk.
Are there any mental models that have been effective for you just dealing with all the uncertainty that a founder is going to face building a brand?
Yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of time reading books on spirituality and the universe and manifestation, and done quite a bit of work myself in therapy with psychedelics, different retreats, and trying to surround myself with people that are very grounded and calm. And I have the utmost faith in the universe that whatever is supposed to happen will happen. And all I can do is continue to try to be an upstanding citizen in the way I conduct myself personally, romantically, with my friendships, and in business and beyond. So yeah, I guess I'm not necessarily like a religious person in traditional sense, but I have sort of faith in the universe, if you will, if that means anything.
There's something about the corporate route that absolves you of having much faith in like anything beyond just kind of like your day to day. There's just so many protective guardrails that don't really push you to that edge where your faith is tested. And I wonder if there was any moments for you where you were kind of like feeling like you needed to like tap into that faith, whether it's universe or, whatever it was that made you kind of like start thinking that way.
I stumbled into my opinions now, which is how I think everyone stumbles into any opinion, right? But as it relates to spirituality or confidence in the universe, whatever it is you want to call it, it was just a series of meeting certain people in Austin that were particularly open-minded and helpful and guided me in the sort of like psychedelic realms, while also reading probably 200 to 300 books over the last 3 to 4 years. And basically eventually through the psychedelic path, the reading and accrual of knowledge through books, as well as like going on personal journeys, whether that be through therapy or meditation or whatnot. A combination of those things kind of has led me to form my opinion on how the universe works now, which is, again, like everything that's supposed to, it sounds like so simple and cliche, right? But everything that's supposed to happen is going to happen. And if I did everything I could in a business scenario to, come back to your question, and I knew that I did everything in my power to do something right or to give my best effort, and it doesn't work out in my favor, I'm not going to let that ruin my day. I mean, it might feel a little annoying in the moment, but at the end of the day, like I can only control what I can control.
It's also like a law of nature too, where if you're holding yourself to a standard of excellence with all these different buckets of your life that you laid out, it's like it's going to work out. You're going to be successful. Maybe it's not that venture, it probably will be, but it will lead to something else that will work out for you.
That's exactly right. Pretty much everyone I know that has been wildly, at least financially successful as it relates to starting a business, has trust in themselves and faith in the universe in some way, shape, or form. It may not look or sound like exactly the way I'm describing my faith in the universe, but they maybe had some form of that. It might have been conscious, it might have been subconscious, but that's generally the case. Is they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're doing it in integrity, and they're showing up every day as the best version of themselves and applying themselves in a disciplined way that it's hard to fail if you do that. Look, you might not get the win on the first one if we're talking about entrepreneurship and businesses. You might not get the one, you'll win on the second and the third, but you will eventually. Because it's a game of time. And if you keep putting yourself in the right situations and doing the quote unquote the right thing, forever stacking chips in your favor, hopefully you're bound to win eventually. I haven't met anyone that hasn't, if they kind of live their life that way.
Is there an area of business where you feel like you're more exceptional than other people, whether it's just through your own genius or just having done something so much?
So it's a good segue because I'm working on some brands or side projects which are turning into their own brands right now. I'd say a strong area of mine is sort of identifying opportunities, maybe before the mainstream sees them. So there's a couple wellness brands I'm working on with a buddy of mine that are pretty easy to spin up. And we both come from direct to consumer brand ownership. So yeah, I'd say we're both pretty good at identifying opportunities before they're really mainstream. And from there, it's about packaging that idea up in a brand that's beautiful, cohesive, speaks to people, is cutting edge and quote unquote cool, has like the cool factor. Say I'm okay at that. And then the next thing that I really want to focus on is really scaling brands beyond sort of like the 10 to 15 million in revenue range, like getting a brand from, in this case, like 15 to 50 or 100. That's sort of like my next, hopefully, calling, and somewhere where I'll be working on in the near future. Because it's a very different set of skills, to go from 0 to 1, like you've just done with Noble. And then it's a very difficult set of skills, or different, set of skills to go from like sort of a few million to 15 to 20 million. And then there's a very different set of skills to get a business. We're talking about brands here, consumer brands, from sort of like 15 to 20 to 50, 75, 100. So yeah, I feel like I can go 0 to 1 pretty well. I've gone from 1 to 15, but I have not gone from sort of like 10 to 15 million in revenue to 9 figures. And that's what I'm focused on next. And so, yeah, all the brands I'm working on are better for, sort of better for you, health conscious brands and projects.
And you seem like you're someone where you have a really good gut instinct. You trust your gut instinct. You don't necessarily feel the need for like all this extensive market testing. It's like you can almost see things a few moves ahead, and you're like, I think this is what the trend is going to be. Let's run at it.
Yes and no. So a big lesson I learned from my first brand, which is a men's skincare brand, is it's incredibly important to have that gut instinct, but it's even more important to test that in a sort of vacuum, but a contained container sandbox, I guess, to use a better term, to validate the idea before you go invest more money in it. So what that looks like for me, in the case of some of the stuff I'm working on now, is, I have the idea, hypothesis, I'll put, 10 grand into the brand, build a little brand, do an initial purchase order of the product, throw it up on Facebook, various social media platforms, and see what the metrics look like. The metrics that we pay attention to, at least in this case, are customer acquisition cost, CAC, how much it costs me to buy a customer, basically. LTV is a little tougher to model out because we're just doing this in like 30 days, and you want to look at the lifetime value of a customer over 180 days or a year or 18 months. But you can get a pretty good picture of that through financial modeling. And then gross margin of the product. Like, how it costs you this to make it. These are the things that it costs to fulfill it. And what does that look like? And if you can get a pretty good signal on those 3 metrics, so customer acquisition cost, lifetime value, and gross margin early on with very minimal investment, then I will go either invest more of my own money, bring in investors, or a group with these specific projects that I'm alluding to now. And I have a co-founder as well. So,
nice. How important is it having the right people around you when you're starting a business?
I've seen and been a part of a couple from an advisory standpoint that saw these. I'm speaking about other founders now that saw who the successful people were in the space and then surrounded themselves with them. And almost all of them have been successful. Wow. So there's one company that I advise that I won't name, but they, in particular, were very savvy with who they brought onto their advisory board. They brought me on, now I'm kind of like promoting myself, but they brought me on because I made a ton of mistakes. And I made that very clear to them when I first talked to them and detailed what those were and how I think I could help them avoid those going forward. So they brought me on, maybe a small handful of others, and they actually leaned on their advisors. And when they made big decisions, they would go sort of canvas the 3 or 4 of us that were on the advisory board. And then they would make an informed decision based on, what the consensus was or lack thereof. And she regularly says, it's a woman who started this company, that her advisory board has kind of been one of the main reasons why she's been successful. And she has a mid 8-figure level brand now in 2 years because she brought on the right people.
Wow.
And so I have not come across anyone else who was so, I don't know whether that was like her intuition said. I mean, obviously like a lot of people bring on advisors and stuff, but I've never seen someone use the advisory board model as intelligently as this person. And I think that's a very wise way to go if you're starting out a business, whatever category it's in. It could be tech, software, crypto, a brand like the ones that we have. Go find the absolute smartest but reasonable people in the space and use them. Ask them what the biggest mistakes were they made, assuming they built something that you're trying to model after. And if you do that, your chances of success go way up.
Do you think more brands should be doing these like 30-day mini pilots that you're talking about?
Everyone should be doing that.
Yeah.
The reason that everyone didn't do that historically was because from 2012 to 2018, nobody did that because they would just start a brand. They would throw ads up on Facebook and it would just work. So, Native deodorant, in the early stages of Native deodorant, their CAC or customer acquisition cost on Facebook was $3 and they would sell it for $12. And it probably cost them, again, I might get this exact number wrong, but probably cost them $3 to produce. They're making money on the first purchase, assuming you buy more than one deodorant. So I'm not saying it was easy. It was just a very different environment from a marketing standpoint. So tons of these brands piled in. There was sparkling waters. I'm just looking at stuff in the room. Camera companies, camera bag companies, chair companies. And because there was such a demand for new brands and the demand engine, Facebook and Instagram, was so cheap, pretty much anyone, if they had a decent product with a decent brand and were smart enough to understand Facebook ads, could scale businesses. So that was a period, a sort of golden era from 2012 to 2018. Obviously, there was a bull run in the economy then as well. So money was cheap, interest rates were low, lots of funds sprung up that would fund ideas like this. And the thesis was basically like, oh, we're looking at the D2C, direct to consumer of everything now. We'll fund these companies or whatever. And basically what you had was a proliferation of these venture funds that invested $2, $3, $4 million into brands before they even started. And it worked for a little while. And it worked through COVID, which helped, lift e-commerce sales as well. And now that that's over and we're back to normal life, we've come back down to earth. All these brands are shutting down because the demand engine on Facebook is not working like it used to. There was a software update that Apple did in spring of 2021 that made it much more difficult to target people efficiently. It's kind of a long-standing battle between Apple devices and Facebook. And so lots of venture funds that started up, $25, $50 million funds, they've been shut down because they're not getting the returns they thought they would because the marketing cost is too high from this battle between Apple and Facebook. So to make a long story short, I got probably a bit too esoteric there.
That's great.
It's way more difficult to start a brand now is the long of the short or the short of the long.
Shit.
If you are going to start one, the way you should start one is the way that you did it, which is build an audience first through content and then arbitrage that content into starting a brand. So that's like easily one of the best ways to be successful with a brand. The other way you could do it is just through testing, like I mentioned I'm doing. So invest a very minimal, it can be less than the number I said too. I think I said 10,000. You could do this for a couple $100. Set up some fake landing pages, start running some ads, see what the customer acquisition cost looks like. And if you get good signal from that, invest a little bit more. You get good signal from that next phase, invest a little bit more. Make the brand better, make the products better, invest more in the packaging, make bigger purchase orders over time. That's the way that you should build a brand. A lot of there's no reason why people should be getting $2, $3, $4 million in seed funding to go start a brand. It's okay to invest that. It is okay to take venture. I'm definitely not saying that you shouldn't take venture dollars when the timing is right, when you need it to scale, to go faster, to bring in better people. But most brands don't need it. And I think, to come back to the point about the audience stuff, some of the most successful brands on the planet are brands that are fueled by big audiences. You look at the Kardashians brands, like Kim's brand Skims, just I think 4 billion valuation. Obviously they're like some of the most famous people on the planet, but a lot of these like creator-led brands work really well because they have the audience that's already loyal and they just have to switch something on, which is turning on the brand website. And then they have a bunch of loyal customers who convert. So if you're thinking about starting a brand, hopefully you either have A, a big following, excuse me, or B, are prudent with how you test it.
Do you have any business advice that you feel like maybe you believe strongly in, but a lot of other people might disagree with, that take?
Like a contrarian take, you're saying?
Yeah.
The testing thing is quite contrarian. I don't know what's in my throat right now, but of course it's terrible timing. Excuse me. That one's quite contrarian. I still don't think enough people do that. I get people coming to me all the time saying I'm starting this skincare brand or this clothing brand. And I'm like, trust me, I've started a skincare brand and I had the funding and really smart people around me. And I still have not been able to make it work to the extent that I wanted. So that's just one example, obviously, but you got to test this stuff before you invest a bunch of money and time and quit your job or whatever.
Right.
So I don't think it's contrarian. Excuse me as I die from whooping cough or whatever is going on over here. But I would suggest whatever business you're starting, see if there's a way that you can kind of test things in a sandbox before you quit your job, raise money, etc. It just de-risks the whole, operation that way.
Yeah.
That's really good advice. What things kind of get you the most excited about the future?
Are you speaking about the future of health or just the future
just for you in general? Just for Ben.
Yeah. So personally, I'm 30 years old. I am in a bit of an adventurous streak in my life right now. So I'm trying to not accrue stories for the sake of accruing stories, but live my life in a way that like immerses me into new experiences. So went to Europe for 8 weeks this summer, did a kind of bucket list trip through a lot of the places that I haven't been that I've wanted to go. That's one part of it. In September, I'm going to Buenos Aires for an indefinite period of time. I don't know when I'm going to come back. It'll probably be 6 months or something. But so I'm in a phase of not just like saying yes, but being intentional about kind of like, hey, I'm 30, I'm single, I work from my computer. I don't have dogs or pets or anything. My family's taken care of and healthy here in America. Like it's time to go kind of like live and do things that I've always wanted to do and feel drawn to. So I feel like I'm in a season of immense focus on business, number one, but also a little bit of adventure mixed in as well. So I can obviously focus on my businesses in Buenos Aires, for example. It's 1 hour ahead of Eastern time. Mm-hmm. I'll be set up in a way that'll have an office and stuff. So those are the two things I'm focused on right now. I'm fortunate that my health is in a good place. I'm happy. I can't really complain, to be honest.
Yeah. It's almost like you reverse engineered it where you've looked down the road and have been like, all right, well, when Ben's an old man, maybe I'm going to regret not going after some of these experiences when I'm 30, when I don't have kids. It's like, now's the time to do it.
1,000,000%. I catch some flack occasionally for the frequency of dance parties and stuff that I go to too. And like,
you need more.
I need more.
In our opinion.
I want more. Yeah. Jokes aside, I think it's important to be healthy, obviously, but you got to live life too. And I like to have fun. But I do so in an intentional way. I also don't drink alcohol, so it makes kind of going to parties, which I only do 2 or 3 times a month, by the way. I'm not going out every weekend. It makes it a little bit easier to bounce back from. So do you guys drink?
On occasion. Like red wine.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
Fucks my stomach up. Just feel like shit. So.
Yeah. Once you kind of move on from alcohol and then you reintroduce it, look, I enjoy tequila more than the next guy, right? But it's been 5 years since I've had an alcoholic beverage, and I don't miss it at all. That's incredible. I don't miss it at all.
What made you want to do that?
That's a big story. The short of the long.
Should we save it for part 2?
Yeah, we'll save it for part 2, but I'll get into the high level. Basically got jumped, and I was fortunate to end up on top, despite there being a massive number of other people that were attacking me.
Holy shit.
And after that, I took a week or 2 off from drinking because I had a lot of cuts and bruises and body aches, which that's the closest I've gotten to a UFC fight. And I can't imagine what their bodies feel like after their 5 rounds, 5 minutes. There were bruises and sensations in my body that I didn't know could be possible. Obviously I've been in fights before, I'd played some sports, I've gotten hurt many times, but this was head to toe, there was random things wrong with me from this interaction. And so anyway, I took a week or 2 off. I'm going out because I was I need to heal my body. And I just didn't drink again because I felt really good. And I was only drinking maybe once a week at that point, and it was on Saturday nights, socially speaking. But I would drink a lot of tequila when I would go out. So it would be a 1 or 2 day hangover thing. And without that for 2 or 3 weeks, I started to feel so much better. And then I went out one night and didn't drink and was oh, this isn't as hard as people say. I don't have to drink to go out. Mm-hmm. And then that snowballed into a month, 6 months, a year. Now it's 5 years. So yeah, that's how that happened. I'm increasingly seeing that being the case. If not most of my friends, almost all of them don't drink. And those that do are pretty tempered with it. 1, 2 max a night when they go out.
Yeah. It's if you have great social skills, if you're confident, all these things can be taught and learned. It's why do you feel the need to drink?
Couldn't agree more, to be honest. I think there's also we don't need to get into the specifics of this, but there's just better alternatives too. Safer, less deleterious to the body. Alcohol is poisonous. It's super toxic. That's not to say drugs aren't as well, but there are certain ones that quite frankly aren't as harmful as alcohol is. And I think what's crazy to me is how we've just totally normalized the consumption of alcohol. It's not crazy how it happened. It's just crazy how we have the information we have now about it, and we still continue to imbibe and drink as much as we do across the globe.
Yeah.
And it's a communal thing. Like, I understand it. I think there are some upsides to it, like connection. It does for some people help with anxiety, and it gets them out of the house, which I think is good. But to the extent that you're drinking 5, 6, 7 plus drinks in one night, and for some people a couple times a week, that's horrible for your health.
Yeah.
It's just no questions asked.
It's crazy to think at a certain point it was safer to drink alcohol than it was water. But now we live in a world where information is available and you can make some more conscious decisions around your health.
And yet people still don't make the right decision. Well, what we should clarify what we view as the right decision, which still may be wrong. But I think, based on the way we feel intuitively, I think it's hard to believe that we're not right about the booze stuff and some other things too.
I mean, if there was a particular food that gave you a hangover the way alcohol did,
you would never eat it.
It would be poison. We would classify it as a poison, right? But we just accept alcohol as this like social.
It's a carcinogen. No. Yeah. I think so. Right? Alcohol? No.
I think so.
I think so. I don't know enough.
Not doctors.
We
are doctors. We're schizophrenic doctors.
Oh man.
Yeah, speak for yourself, bro.
I'm a doctor.
I am a doctor.
I am not going to say that because I don't know what's going to happen with these clips. So, I'm going to make sure I get a hold of your editor and get the clips of you guys saying you're doctors. So I'm going to blackmail you down the line. Yeah.
I'm the only one that said it. You're good.
I'm a doctor.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Oh, yeah. You guys are in this. You guys are in this together. Yeah.
Dr. Scholes.
Mutually assured destruction.
Oh, man. But in all seriousness, though, dude, this was such a blast having you on. To think from like the time that we first connected to you to now being close friends with you, just like seeing the journey that you've been on, this new chapter, launching these new brands, going to South America. It's like, dude, I feel like the best is ahead. And, we've appreciated just like becoming friends with you and learning from your perspective on health and wellness and all that good stuff. And very grateful that you're in studio with us today.
Right back at you. What a fortuitous introduction we had at Kuya in the sauna. That goes to show you, we were talking earlier about how do you meet cool people or build community. Do things around health and you will meet cool people.
Yep.
Because that's how we met. So thanks for having me on, guys. It was a true pleasure.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Cheers.